So moving into our presenter segment, I'm excited to introduce our presenters today because they're going to show you exactly how to turn Microsoft's AI platform into real business wins for your clients. Joining us, we have Chad Muckenfuss, Chris Fish, Ford Lucan from Mobile Mentor, as well as Denis O'Shea, our founder and CEO. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Chad, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Cassandra. Again, thank you from the Mobile Mentor team for joining today. I think it's going to be a fun conversation that we're going to have. We like these fireside chat type models to go through. And I think the topic of conversation today is appropriate. And I really appreciate you, the three of you, joining me today to talk this through. One of the key things that I hear a lot of times from our partners and customers is Copilot sucks. And that's one of the key things that kicks off a conversation in and around Microsoft AI. So with all of that being said, why do they feel that way? And how do we overcome that more importantly? How do we overcome that mindset with the customers? And Denis, I'll kick it over to you to start things here.
Sure. Look, that's a great way to start. And the analogy I would give you is that if your customer is a hospital, the computer experience for anyone working inside the hospital probably sucks as well. And the reason for that is that people, the end users, the nurses and the administrators probably compare that computer experience to what they have at home. At home, they can just buy a machine from, say, Best Buy, set it up, use it. They have a nice, easy user experience. In the hospital, that computer has been provisioned to be a totally different experience because you're protecting PHI and PII in a very sensitive environment. So there's probably 20 years of design gone into securing the data, securing the device, securing the access to the EMR and all the things. And it's a completely different experience in an enterprise setting. So just hold that example in your mind for a second. Now we go to AI. We're all using AI in our personal lives. You know, you can just use ChatGPT in the browser. You have a really neat experience. If you then try and transpose that to an enterprise environment, like a healthcare setting where there is PHI and PII, of course, you can't just use naked, unsecured ChatGPT in an enterprise environment. You have to apply controls and security and some adult supervision to it in the same way you had to do with that computer to bring it into a clinical environment, using it in a hospital. So the reason Copilot sucks and the reason so many of our meetings start with that language is that what Microsoft have done as the opening play in the AI space is they took ChatGPT, they added some guardrails, some security, they grounded the data in the Microsoft Office 365 environment, they provided some contextual relevance, and that changes the experience because they had to. Because if they don't, there's going to be massive privacy breaches. There's going to be huge security leaks. You imagine if ChatGPT was just running wild in an enterprise environment with no guardrails, you know, that hospital is going to be out of business in minutes because the data is going to leak. So that's the reason why people perceive Copilot sucks. It's because security, controls, guardrails has been applied to make it useful in an enterprise setting. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And I'm seeing in the chat here, and this is great because all of you that are watching this, we want you to interact in the chat and ask questions. And Rick made that same point here is guardrails and data mining are a key factor in that. And you know, I've got other people chiming in that they don't feel they can trust Microsoft with their data either. And I think that's something to overcome in general with AI, but specifically in the Microsoft and ChatGPT world where those two have come together for Copilot. We can actually touch into, hopefully down the road a little bit here in the conversation, how Anthropic is getting pulled into this now as well with Copilot too. But continuing down the path of Copilot and implementation, can you kind of kick things off with maybe a real world example of where you stepped in? You're using healthcare and as an example. Maybe give a win or something like that you're working in that space right now where a hospital or a health system has been able to leverage Copilot correctly, and how you as Mobile Mentor go in and make that happen.
Sure. We've got a rollout happening today, actually, here in Nashville, one of the major healthcare providers. I think it's about 6,000 seats of Copilot being rolled out to all the the non-clinical users initially, the revenue cycle people. And the way it's being rolled out is that it's sitting on top of Microsoft 365. That's the first thing to understand. So all the data that people are accessing is enterprise data in Microsoft 365. That's in Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, and all the different Microsoft applications. And the first thing to understand about the Copilot strategy is Microsoft's strategy is not to try and compete and win the model war. Okay? Models will come and go. ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, all the rest of them. The models will come and go, and there's trillions flowing into that industry. And so we'll see a lot of movement in that space. Microsoft's strategy is simply to be the UI for AI. The UI for AI. They want to provide you a safe, secure user interface to use the model of choice. So the rollout we're doing at that unnamed healthcare provider, we're showing them how you can select Claude, if that's your preferred model, or select one of the GPT models if you prefer that. So you choose the model you want to do the piece of work you want. And if I can share my screen, I'm actually going to show you what this looks like, because it's a game changer when you see the ability to select a different model. Do I have?
And as you're bringing that up, I'm going to answer. There was a couple of questions that popped up here. So Mark asked, how do we sell AI to clients for real MMR or monthly recurring revenue opportunities? Yeah. Just talking about it doesn't pay the bills. Agreed, Mark. And the whole premise behind this is to leverage organizations like Mobile Mentor and others in the portfolio for Teleris to be able to get that monthly recurring revenue around offerings and support and ongoing development and operations, DevOps, on different platforms, just like Dennis is talking about here. The ongoing support, the training, all those aspects of things, it's the services built around these models currently, and that's what's happening here. So what is a key factor is taking the conversation and turning it into that MMR is what we're driving for today. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll come back to that, because
yes, absolutely.
We have a model now that is generating MRR, which we're taking to market through this community. So we get to that, but there's a little bit I want to cover before.
Absolutely. So, please.
Can you see my screen, Chad?
I can. Yep.
Okay. So if we're just doing a basic chat in ChatGPT, you can choose Claude or in Copilot, we can choose Opus Claude or one of the ChatGPT models. If we go to Researcher, which is a phenomenal tool to go deep into something, the response is going to take much longer because it's doing deep inference, it's doing deep referencing. But again, we can go here and we can choose, I want auto, just choose the best model for the task. Critique, which is fascinating. I saw this yesterday. So it uses GPT by default and then gets Claude to pressure test it and challenge the answers that come back from GPT. Model Council, I saw this yesterday. It creates two columns and it shows you the GPT response on one and the Claude response on the other. So you look at both and you can figure out which one is more appropriate for the work you want to do. And then the co-work model, where you get multi-step workflows. I believe again here, yes, we can choose some of the different Claude models because they came up with some of that workflow capability. So the first key point is understanding Microsoft strategy is not to win the model war, work with the best models in the industry, and allow you to choose the one that's best served to the kind of work you're doing, whether it's an Excel or PowerPoint or Word or whatever you're doing. Choose the best model and then be able to use it in a way that the work is grounded in your data, your Teams, your OneDrive, your Outlook, and that it's all complying with your security policies. So if you have defined your data correctly, you've classified your data, you've maybe applied some sensitivity labels, you've got some data lifecycle policies, all that is respected in the way the data is returned from the user's search. So now we've gone from naked GPT in someone's browser to an enterprise appropriate experience, which you can use in a hospital and will respect PHI, PII, personal information. and even do things like inline DLP. So if I do a search and say, show me Chad's employment letter, find Ford's payslip, find Chris's performance improvement plan, it will block me from doing that because there's inline data loss prevention. So it will stop me searching for things I shouldn't be searching for. And if something does pop up, because we're doing it inside the Microsoft tenant, that will show up in some of the data reports, in the data security posture management, show that last month the following data was returned to some prompts people wrote. So now we might tweak our sensitivity labels, or we might tweak our data security policies so that we're getting safer and safer over time as we're learning from actual experience in the tenant.
So that's very interesting because in the very early days of Copilot and the GPT models and everything out there, security was a big risk, and we saw it in the chat here. Many people, have an issue with trust in and around that data and in and around that information. So seeing that that has all been worked out and can now layer multiple models into the mix. And the great thing when you shared your screen was I'm seeing Opus 4.7 on the list there. That's the latest and greatest version. There's no delay in being able to utilize those
One
models.
month.
Yeah.
1 month. So Microsoft's SLA is
Okay.
will follow the latest models by 1 month to do their testing, validation, integrated into the platform. But in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. So to your point, you will have access to the latest model a month after it comes out.
Yeah. So I think, one of the key things as we move this conversation forward is again going back to you've addressed some of the concerns and you've addressed that big one that I started the conversation with, that kind of slap in the face of Copilot's no good. Now we understand the premise behind it, what Microsoft is trying to do. They're not in the model race whatsoever. They want to use best of breed to achieve the best possible outcomes for the customers in keeping with a very specific security guardrails on that customer's data. Now, this is applied across the board. This is not something that is necessarily an enterprise level situation, but it's also goes down into the SMB space. Those customers with 25 and 50 employees have the same security availability as the enterprise does, correct?
Correct, 100%. So they've got access to the same tools. They might not go as far in defining data classification policies and sensitivity labeling, but they could, and they have all those capabilities and all the controls are there. And that's where we as partners help those organizations turn on those capabilities and do so in a way that's appropriate for their size and their age and stage. And so it's all about making sure that the AI experience is appropriately set up for the kind of data they're handling. Like if you're in a business that doesn't have very heavy security requirements, you might have a different experience.
Sure.
Compared to if you're in a regulated industry.
Yes.
And you have to pass audit and have some compliance reporting. You're going to need to set up your AI capability quite differently. But one of the key things here is the grounding and the training. So if you use ChatGPT, naked ChatGPT in the browser, every time you do something, you are training the GPT model. Okay? It's learning from you. Every time you upload a document to get it reformatted or whatever, you're now providing your company data to the model. It's gone. Your data's gone. It's out in a public large language model, and you're training somebody else's model. When you do it inside Copilot, Microsoft is not using your data for training anyone's model. That's one of the principles of their AI practice, is that all the work happening inside Copilot is staying inside Copilot. You are not training somebody else's model. And that's huge.
That is huge, and that's key. Just touching back on the services that you offer, will you do any of the security, the labeling, anything like that to help set up a customer in a pro serve or ongoing support?
Oh, 100%. That's what we call work stream number 2. We've got 5 work streams in our go-to-market model, and this is all part of the monthly recurring revenue service. The second work stream is the security, which is huge. And for those of you who are technical or semi-technical, what that typically entails is firstly understanding where the enterprise data lives. Some of it might be on legacy on-prem file share. Some of it might be in SharePoint Online, some in OneDrive, some in third party. Need to find where the data is, understand the nature of the data, then probably figure out what the lifecycle policies should be, apply some controls, some labeling, and get the data to a point where we're able to allow Copilot to access most of the data in real time and surface that data in a secure way without creating embarrassment or privacy breaches or security breaches for the organization. Now, that's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody's data is clean. It's all
Correct.
a mess. It's all a mess. And
Yeah.
so we have to assume that there's going to be a journey to get the data in the right place, clean it up. But of course, we can't wait for all that to be done to start using AI because that cat's out of the bag. So we're doing this, we're fixing the plane in flight and cleaning up the data in real time as we're going through the rollout.
So what I have found, Dennis, and your team, Chris and Ford, is that customers that are coming to our partners and they're saying, "I want AI," and that's where it stops. It's a statement. I want AI. And the pivot for a lot of our partners is, well, what kind of AI do you want? One of the talk tracks that I like to talk about is most likely you're already paying for a version of AI because 90% of our customers are leveraging Microsoft. So you already have some kind of version of Copilot built in, and it's really leveraging, again, suppliers like yourselves, specifically, that will come in and help data cleanliness, data security, and set that up in a manner that makes sense. And not only that, but will also train the customers on how to utilize it properly. And I think that's one of the key factors there, going back to that MRR conversation as well, is this is something that if the customer is willing to start small, maybe an HR department, maybe something along those lines, where there are high regulatory aspects to the information that will be shared and searched and all that type of thing, and get a win on just that department or just that team, and then be able to have that team be the cheerleader for rolling it out to the next department and the next department and the next department. This is not a go into the company and roll it out for everyone type of mindset, correct?
Yeah. Except if there are a few examples where people are doing that, but that's generally not the recommended way to do it. Um, the other key consideration here is the number of different tools organizations will deploy. You mentioned that most organizations they've probably got the free version of Copilot,
Correct.
the chat version. I bet you they're probably also subscribing to ChatGPT. There are some people subscribing to Claude. There are some people subscribing to maybe some of the Adobe tools, the Canva tools.
Yep.
So I've got a crazy bold prediction in this space. If you look at what's happening in enterprises today with security, and you know this well, most enterprises have ended up with something around 52 security tools. 52, 5-2, because we've been under attack. And we're buying out of fear. Over the last 10 or 12 years, we've bought all these security tools to protect ourselves. My bold prediction is that enterprises will end up with about 52 AI tools over the next 10 years. It's driven by a different human emotion.
Yes.
It's fear of missing out, not fear of being attacked and breached. It's fear of missing out.
Yep.
People will buy all these tools, and some of them will be used wisely and some will not.
And that's a great statement. And I will reference myself specifically. My son, who is 16, has 7 or 8 different models on his cell phone. On his cell phone. And the conversation revolves around, oh, well, I use this one for this specific task, and I use this one for that task, and I use this for, the physics problems that I have to do, and all those types of things. It's interesting how certain models are developing in and around certain areas. Like there's a going on in the chat here. Ford and Chris are doing a great job with Arvin's question in and around Claude Code and aspects around that. Claude's known for its coding capabilities. So I agree wholeheartedly with you, Dennis, that this is something that is A, not going away, and B, a lot of this information will be utilized specifically for different tasks. And the FOMO aspect is very, very
Yeah.
real. If
Yeah.
I don't have Perplexity to do web searching, then why aren't you using Perplexity? Don't tell me you still use Google. Like, that those aspects of things are
Yeah.
absolutely true
Yeah.
in this. So let's go to the next aspect of things here. You want to take us through the journey of
Sure.
what's going on and how you as mobile mentor kind of approach this.
Yeah.
I know you have kind of a step-by-step
We
process.
do. And I'll tell you the story of the mistakes we made first, because that's going to be really helpful to understand where we landed. So when we started embracing AI about 3 years ago, we ran competitions internally to come up with the best ideas. And we put some prizes, and the first one was $1,000, and then I think $5,000. And as an organization, we're just under 100 people. We're knowledge workers. We're in front of our computers all day, every day. And so I thought as the CEO, we really need to lean into this. We need to embrace this. We need to encourage people to figure this out. And we were very, very forward leaning and enthusiastic about this. And we started rolling out Copilot paid licenses to about 70% of the organization. And then we kind of ran aground and we realized we had got some things wrong. And what I now call our 5 pain points were we had not defined the use cases where AI should have been able to make a difference. We just hadn't defined the scenarios. Secondly, we hadn't done our groundwork on data security. We hadn't protected our data like we've been talking about for the last few minutes. We
Yep.
hadn't done that work. We didn't train people properly. And I felt I was the biggest dumbass in the company because I just couldn't use Copilot properly in Excel and PowerPoint and Word and different things. So we just didn't have the skills. We had no idea where to start with agents, building autonomous agents that can do work for us. Just didn't have a clue where to start. And then lastly, we had no governance and no visibility of any return on investment. So when the board said, right, you're spending all this money, you're incentivizing people, you're paying for all these licenses, how's that working out? I had zero data to be able to say, it's great, we're saving time and money, or it's a complete waste of time, we're turning it all off next month. I had no visibility whatsoever. So those became the 5 pain points: defining the use cases, securing the data, training people to use Copilot correctly, building agents, and some kind of ROI and governance model. From there, we built our Copilot mentoring program, which has been a runaway success for us. But it came out of pain. And so if we can share that one slide, please, that we sent earlier. Thank
Yep.
you. So the Copilot mentoring program, it's an MRR service, sold as a year-long program of work, can be multiple years for large enterprises. And it starts off with a business analysis. Going into the business, and I go back to the hospital example, because that's so top of mind, understanding a day in the life of each of the different clinical users, or the revenue cycle people, or the administrators, or the sales people, or the insurance claims people, to understand where AI can move the needle for that particular role, and documenting it and saying, here's the hypothesis. If we give this person AI tooling, they will work better, faster, produce more outputs, whatever. Second program of work is the data security, scanning the data, see where is it, what's going on with the data, and what's the degree of our data oversharing risk. Because the LLM search will find everything. Every offer letter, every pay slip, every performance improvement plan, every social security number, every credit card that ever existed, way back to eternity, AI will find it. The third is training people how to use, like I showed you here, the researcher, the co-work, the analyst capability, how to restructure documents, how to build PowerPoint decks, how to create Excel formulas, how to reverse engineer Excel formulas. Someone gives you a spreadsheet and there's a ridiculously long formula, and you want to know what the hell is that doing? You can use Copilot to figure out, what's the formula. And then agents, building agents in the right way. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because agents is going to become a mushroom cloud inside organizations. Literally, it's just going to go ballistic unless there's some guardrails around agents. And then the last part is the ROI model, taking actual usage data out of Viva to see where people are using Copilot, is it PowerPoint, Word, Excel, blah, 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 and getting some proxy for usage and time saving, and then building a Power BI report to show the return on investment. So then we close the loop and we can say, for the use case we defined for that group of clinical users, we can now see a report showing that, yes, they are getting great value, and we should pour gasoline on that fire and give Copilot to more and more people. Or it's not working. We were wrong. The hypothesis failed. Those people aren't really using it. Pull the licenses back from them and give some other teams a chance. And being able to make an informed decision based on actual usage that we can see in the tenant.
And this is key, and I'm seeing the chat kind of bubble up here again about this. So, again, your model is and accurately named is to become a mentor for these customers to be able to help them through the process from beginning to end. And one of the key questions that I wanted to highlight was Chris Phillips asked is, so if a company is looking to hire people for AI, you can offer this as a service versus taking on that company taking on new hires to do this work.
Correct. So essentially, it's teach a man to fish rather than giving them a fish. And so we're not going to do staff augmentation and put people into their organization. We're going to take them through this, and we're going to show them over time. Here's how you identify your use cases and document them. Here's how you secure your data, and then this becomes a managed service over time, which I'll come back to because that's super interesting from a revenue perspective. And here's how we do the rollout and the training per use case, per department, whatever. Here's how we build agents in the right framework with the right guardrails. And each of those becomes a software product that needs ongoing management and maintenance. And here's how we measure the ROI and take the conversation up a level for the exec team or the board to be able to show what's working, what's not, and how we make decisions on where we apply more investment.
Sure. And I think that just answered Keith. Keith just posted here. Are you using or recommending specific KPIs or benchmarks to assess areas for improvement in identifying an ROI for your services?
Yes, and it will be different for each use case.
Yep.
So like Ford, do you want to give an example of maybe one of the use cases where we had a very clear metric around people producing more or
Yeah, so you can hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
So one of the hospitals we're working with, they have some like pre-admission screenings, and they're having issues with those getting denied. They basically have to meet some requirements, some legal requirements. So this was a great AI use case. They had basically defined a rubric against these government requirements and are able to upload these documents, and it comes back with a score, gives you a breakdown of each section, say, hey, this is likely not to get approved, gives you a reason why. And, it's easy to say, okay, before deploying this tool, we had 10% of these documents getting denied. After, it's less than 1%.
Awesome. And so does that percentage become the KPI that they want to measure and report on?
Correct.
Okay. That's crystal clear because I can go straight to the exec team and say, here's what's different.
Yeah. There's another question that popped up on the Q&A side, not in the chat here, but it's from Aaron, and he said, since Claude Cowork is in preview with quote unquote no logging, how do you sandbox it and gain visibility into what's happening within Claude?
By doing it inside the Copilot framework. So again, Copilot is the UI for AI to happen responsibly inside your tenant. So all the things that happen in Cowork, and it's going to be a workflow, all that will be based on your data in Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, all your applications, stay inside your tenant and follow all your security policies, your data classification policies. It's all staying inside your environment.
That's great. So, and I know this is going to generate a lot of questions. So we're headed into the last 10 minutes here, and I wanted to have you talk us through the whole process as far as pricing and what does this look like and the MRR aspect of things. But first, Arvin's been talkative in the chat here. So one of the things is, can you support enterprise customers in North America, Western Europe, ANZ? This is all going to go hand in hand here, but what coverage area does Mobile Mentor offer specifically? And then we can get into the pricing and breakdown and how this looks.
Sure. Yes, we can support customers pretty much anywhere in the Western world that are using Copilot and following the Microsoft licensing model. We have operations all across North America, Australia, New Zealand, and then a few team members in different countries in Europe, Middle East, Latin America, different places. So yes to the geographic question. And we're Microsoft Global Partner of the Year for the work we've been doing with Microsoft. We've either won or been a winner in the Microsoft partner ecosystem every year for the last 5 years, which means, I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that as a way of telling you we can get funding from Microsoft.
And that's a key factor.
Cases, yeah, yes. And that's super valuable. So we can get access to their wallet in a couple of ways. And so sometimes, a customer will want to do something and they're committing to making a license commitment, and Microsoft will put some funds, give some funds to the partner to help kickstart that work, which helps enormously. I see a question here as well. This is not billed by the seat. It's billed, it's like an enterprise fee. It typically starts at, I think, 6,750 per month. And so for a year, it's about 80K. And it's a team of people. So we have one specialist who's doing the use case work. And the person who leads that team is the former head of clinical informatics from a large healthcare provider. She worked there for 17 years. So she's a nurse, and she knows how to find her way around hospitals, for example, and find the use cases, because she knows how the data flows between all the clinical applications. She's able to find how AI needs to move. The data security, we've got data security architects who've been working in the Microsoft environment for years. The training, we started out as a training organization 22 years ago. Ford is a key player in our development. He's an AI developer. And then we've got a bunch of capabilities there. And the key point I want to make around that is it's not just about developing agents. Where the puck is moving it's about managing agents. And Microsoft have a new product coming out, I think on the 1st of June, called Agent 365. That's where all the money, all the investment, all the funding is going to go in the next financial year. And Agent 365 becomes a control plane for all the agents that are going to pop up across the enterprise. So you're all used to Entra as the control plane for identity, Intune is the control plane for devices, SharePoint is the control plane for all the data, Purview is the control plane for securing the data. Agent 365 becomes a control plane for agents. Every agent will have an identity, will have APIs it will call, will have permissions, access privileges, will have a software lifecycle and version management. All of that gets managed in Agent 365 as the control plane. That becomes super important. And that's the managed service opportunity for all of us.
Yep.
Two opportunities here for managed services. One is the ongoing data security posture management, DSPM, managing how the data is flowing, what data is showing up in response to prompts. Second, agent management. Organizations will have tens, then hundreds, then thousands, and tens of thousands of these autonomous agents. Every one of them is a software product with a life cycle and a risk profile. So the managed service here is just phenomenally exciting. And so we're selling this as a subscription service, and it will evolve. That's the key thing. It will evolve into a managed service or a co-managed service in year 2 or 3 as AI gets deployed at scale.
And I think that's, again, reiterating what we've talked about already, is going back to this and saying, again, small wins are the key factor. So being able to implement this in a specific department within an organization first, get it set up and trained and utilizing it, mentoring or training those employees to utilize it correctly and how they can best get the information that they typically require and become more productive. Then using that win as an example to continue to expand it over time throughout the whole organization so that it's tailored properly. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, and I just want to pick up on one point I've seen in the chat. I'm just glancing at some of the chat, but somebody asked about fine-tuning a model. And so far, we've only talked about Copilot, which is really the canned version of AI. For organizations that want to go further and build product capability for their organization, that'll happen in the Azure environment, which has got a a ton of capability. So if you want to go into the Azure environment and build your AI tooling, you can choose any model you want. Grok, DeepSeek, Google Gemini. You choose any model you want, and you can choose all the data tooling with Fabric and build out with Foundry. And that's real plug and play. And you're choosing, vision recognition or audio recognition or speech recognition capabilities. And you're plugging all these things together to build your own model in the Microsoft environment with all the security you would normally have there. So that's a different skill set.
Yes.
Different skill set. And
Yes.
so we're moving into that progressively, but it's a learning curve, right? So we're learning, you're learning, the customers are learning. It's an extraordinary time to be in this business because the rate of change is just mind-boggling. But organizations will probably start by rolling out something like Copilot, get to a certain point, identify where the real value is for their organization, and then decide, instead of paying this subscription for this canned version, let's build our own. And let's go deeper and customize this.
Exactly. And that's something, especially as you go up market, that's where all of this kind of comes together and says, hey, I need this tailored to my needs as an organization, not it serves everyone and we'll do some minor tweaks to help me type of thing. So I agree wholeheartedly on that. One question that I do want to continue down the path on the smaller side of things. So 6750 is the monthly recurring. Do you offer anything on the smaller scale for like a certain number of employees, or is it really that's the bottom line for you in the offering?
We have done smaller engagements. We've had smaller organizations who say we just need some training or some guidance, or we just need help with the data security piece of this, and we'll customize it.
Okay,
so any one of those five work streams and do one of those. But that will generally create a gap then because you've done one thing and you haven't done the other four.
Right.
So this is best practice to kind of treat this as a program. It happens over a year. Take people on the journey. There's a weekly cadence where we're all working together. A weekly cadence of meetings working through the program. But we can do these individually if that's what the client wants.
And I think that's key. One of the early on questions in the chat was around so you can step in without an organization having to hire an AI expert or number of people and do this for them. The cost factor there, as most of us are aware, for an AI engineer or prompt engineer these days is astronomical. And let alone can you keep them a full year before they're sucked away by somebody else.
Yeah.
So leveraging a mobile mentor to come in, help the customer first and foremost, to help them determine what those outcomes are that they need, getting those small wins, growing it, and moving it along is well worth the investment for that organization. Understanding that the SMB space, may not have the budget for this, but if they're looking at this and it's a 30 to 50 person company, it may be worthwhile for them to make the investment and then see how they can really become more productive. Because again, the ROIs are going to be there most definitely as they roll this out.
Absolutely. And especially if those 30 to 50 people are knowledge workers, sitting in front of a computer most of the time.
Right.
They really have no choice. You've got to figure out how to embrace AI because that's, potentially how you get those 50 people then do the work of 70 people. And
exactly.
That's where the growth comes from. And so, spending, a few grand a month to figure that out and get more work done, produce more. That's super exciting.
So again, I'm going to go back here because it kind of brings this all to a nice conclusion here as we wrap up in the next couple of minutes. Is Keith mentioned, are there discovery questions that an advisor can use to start the customer engagement? And I think that goes to specifically your capability and capacity assessment that you really kind of drive the initial conversation forward with, correct?
Or it could be the Copilot readiness assessment, which is probably going to be the more appropriate one here. Chris, can you put the link in the chat, please, for the CRA, the Copilot readiness assessment? And Chad, the way that works is that service has a price because there's a cost for us to deliver it.
Sure.
When we get a qualified referral through one of your partners, we waive that cost. So if it's a real enterprise with real intent to do AI at scale, we'll do the Copilot readiness assessment at no charge. And the value of doing that is we get to understand their maturity on each of these 5 topics. How well have you actually identified your use cases? What does your data security look like today? The training and change management maturity, where you have with agents and integrations and API availability, and then the governance model. We score them and we'll show them how they compare to others, and then we'll build a plan and say, here's what you would need to do this responsibly, safely, at scale, and be successful. And we like to have you, the partner, part of that conversation, because now we're all on the same page. We've all seen the pain, we all see the opportunity, we're all in this together, and we can take the customer on the journey, and everyone's aligned.
Yeah, exactly right. And I truly appreciate, Dennis, you and the team, Chris and Ford, being able to join us today and talk us through this. I think it's important that our partners understand how this is changing business, specifically here in the US, but around the world, and how the adoption really needs guidance for AI across the board. And I love the term, the UI for AI. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that and use that from now on. It's fantastic. This is something that I think can be seized on. I know that the chat is blowing up with questions in and around price, and I understand it may be costly for some SMB, but the point was raised in the chat as well. How many thousands of dollars are being spent on tokens and professional memberships in all of these different models? If I have 5 of them and 4 of them are pro, that alone is 120 to 150 bucks a month just for me. So again, it's something where I think the AI readiness assessment, the Copilot readiness assessment that you offer is something that is a huge value for the partners to leverage and begin that conversation.
And I'm seeing a lot of questions related to customer profile. I guess we've designed our service and our model around the SMC market rather than the SMB. So the way we think about small, medium corporations is probably 100 plus employees, up to a few hundred. Most of our services, most of our pricing is targeting that market. Yes, we can go down and we can deconstruct services and reduce services, of course, and we go up into the enterprise space. But the spot we aim for is probably the 100 to 300 seat organization. That is our ICP.
Okay, great. Well, again, I thank you very, very much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. Really, truly appreciate the guidance for myself as well as for our partners here today. I look forward to future engagements. You guys are leaning in very heavily in the channel, and we really, truly appreciate that. So again, I want to thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Cassandra to wrap things up.